Hey, I'm making this because I want to preface a little bit as far as what happened to me today. I'm driving back from Colorado to Utah. It's 4:39 right now. I wanted to start off by saying this is going to come up with a lot of people not understanding the law and jumping to conclusions. First and foremost, I was not pulled over for a moving violation. What that means is that, let's say that the law enforcement officer was following me and saw firsthand that I committed a traffic violation. He witnessed it firsthand. He has reasonable, articulable suspicion that I have committed a crime. Therefore, in a moving violation, whether or not you agree that you're guilty of that crime or not, you have to ID. You have to. You have to give your license, insurance, registration to that law enforcement officer. If you don't agree with it, doesn't matter. You have to give that. You fight it in court. That's how that works. I was not pulled over for a moving violation. I pulled into a gas station, put my vehicle in park, and then about 30 seconds later, an officer came up to me and informed me I had to ID. Second thing I wanted to bring up to clear the air. In the video, I brought up some issues about race. The only reason of doing that was because when the officer initially stopped me, he told me he was stopping me because my vehicle matched the description. Dark gray sedan. My counter argument to that, if that's the case, my buddy, who I was leaving with, was driving the exact same color car. It was also a sedan. Dark gray. We both have dark gray cars. Okay? If that's your argument, then why are you not treating this equally to everybody? Why am I the suspect? He later says, well, the suspect was identified as a black male. One of the suspects. If one of the suspects were identified as a black male, well, then that leaves room to me, because you're telling me one of the suspects, that it was a multiple suspect crime. If only one was identified as a black male, then everybody should be open as a person of interest. The officers accused me of being in a homicide or being a suspect in a homicide, even though we're both driving the same vehicle. They go over and talk to him. He has guns they can see in the back seat. They can see the guns. He doesn't get forced to show his ID or prove what he's doing or anything. I woke up that morning, I got ready in my hotel, came out, I saw there was some police activity in the road or at a Motel 6 that's down the road. Didn't think anything of it, went to a gas station because I had to buy myself a charger because I forgot mine, so my phone was almost dead. Can't charge my phone in the car because my USB ports don't work. So I have to go back inside the hotel, the one that I stayed at, charge my phone until my buddy's ready. My buddy calls me up. He says, hey, we're ready to go. It's like, okay, let's meet in this parking lot. We meet in the same parking lot, same color vehicles. We leave at the exact same time. I'm going to address my favorite audience. The people that say, why didn't you just comply? You would have got out of there faster. If you have nothing to be guilty of, if you're innocent, then just comply, obey. History has shown on multiple occasions people who don't have anything to do with the crime and want to prove they're innocent and work with law enforcement, right? Lots of them, I won't give a percentage, but there's been numerous cases where those people who are completely innocent find themselves as the prime suspect or end up spending time in jail for a crime they did not commit because they're trying to comply, to prove their innocence. The burden is not on that person. The burden is not on me to prove that I had nothing to do with a homicide. The burden is on law enforcement to prove that I did, that I am guilty. I am a free American. I have rights. If you are an American citizen, you have rights to not identify unless you are a suspect in a crime. Not meet the description, not leaving the area, but a suspect, first-hand knowledge. Either the law enforcement officer saw you were involved in that crime, or somebody identified you as a person who was involved directly in that crime. Being a person that meets the description is not reasonable, articulable suspicion that you have committed a crime or involved in a crime or about to commit a crime. That's the law. And it does not differ from any state. It's the same for all 50 states. I am an American citizen. I am a Marine Corps veteran of 12 years. I did 3 tours to Iraq and 1 Marine Expeditionary Unit. I have a master's degree in Homeland Security, which consists of, guess what? 70% criminal justice classes. And you do not need a criminal justice degree or a law degree to understand the law. YouTube will teach you now. Google will teach you. But they will insult you in every form because they think that because they're law enforcement, that they know the law because they're 6-month training. There's a huge difference of enforcing the law and knowing the law. If you're going to enforce it, you better fucking know it. As an American citizen, I refuse to give up my rights. Too many men and women have died for us to have rights, and then there's too many people that don't understand those rights and will become sheep because they're like, oh, well, I just want to comply. I just want to, I don't want to feel guilty or whatever else. You are not the solution. You are the problem. Because the more you give up your rights to where it becomes the norm, it's normal for a police officer to come up to you and ask you for your ID and you give it up or make up any type of bullshit shit. This is normal, right? Once you start to normalize that, once it becomes normal to give up rights and so many people do that, then eventually you lose your rights. And when you lose those fucking rights, it becomes a police state. And then you have to comply. Executing your rights does not mean that you are a prime person. Executing your rights does not admit guilt. It means that I have no obligation to help law enforcement out with their investigation. I may sympathize with it. I may have empathy towards it, but it is my primary responsibility to make sure that I protect myself. It is not my prime responsibility to cooperate with law enforcement for their investigation. So if they're going to use every tactic anyway to make you feel guilty, to make you a suspect in their investigation, then it is counterintuitive to work with them while you're a suspect. Your best bet is to execute your Fifth Amendment right and don't say shit, because you're already a suspect in their eyes. You're already being illegally detained. Why in the world would I want to work with you when you walk up to me and tell me that I'm a suspect in a homicide? A fucking homicide? I don't have a criminal record. It might never been arrested for anything. It may have a couple tickets. I don't have a criminal record at all, period. And you're walking up to me and telling me I'm a suspect in a fucking homicide? It is counterintuitive to work with them to prove you're innocent. The burden is on them to prove that you're fucking guilty. Educate yourself in the law and know your rights. There's no reason why we as a people should fear law enforcement or to feel like we're obligated to work with them just because they approach us. That is out of the realm of your responsibility as an American citizen. Your responsibility is to keep your ass safe so you aren't that person being accused. Temporarily helping law enforcement with their investigation that you're a suspect of does not help anything. It doesn't even help yourself. What you're doing is contributing to the larger problem of Americans willingly giving up their constitutional rights. Can't stress enough, always, always, always record your interaction with the police, no matter how small. I had no idea that a law enforcement officer was going to walk up to me today and say that I'm a suspect in a homicide. They'll try to convince you we're recording too, for our safety and your safety. No. If anything, you record for transparency purposes, so that you have record that's available immediately, because their police reports can change. The video can be altered, the video can be lost. Sometimes it takes an act of God to get that FOIA request from that police department, because they protect their own. So what do you have? You have that footage on your behalf. Buy a dash cam, use your camera, record your interaction with the police. It is not illegal by any means. Always record for your own protection. I'm more than positive if this was a different day and age and I didn't have these cameras and they didn't have their cameras for my protection, that probably would have went down way differently. And then a police report would have said all these type of things that weren't true, when all I was doing was executing my rights as a fucking American citizen. For the record, I do not hate law enforcement. I do not hate cops. I am not anti-police. I am pro-American rights. There is a difference. I'm all about law enforcement officers doing their job. I know they have a difficult job. But them doing their job does not come at the expense of an American citizen losing their rights. That's not how it works. They can come up to anybody if you're a person of interest and question you. But you have every right to not answer their questions or to help them in their investigation. And I would advise every single person, if you are innocent of that crime, do not prove your innocence. You know your innocence. The evidence will show that. Execute your rights. They're already violating your rights, so they've got to violate it some more to force you to be a part of that investigation. That's on them. Even more reason for you later on to prove that they're in the wrong. And lastly, hindsight being 2020, like looking back, I will admit I could have handled myself a little bit better. But to be clear, it is not illegal to have an attitude with law enforcement. It's not illegal to question law enforcement. It is not illegal to not cooperate with their investigation. Period. It's not illegal to give a cop the bird. It's not illegal to tell him to fuck off. If you know your rights and you're within that realm, you're fine. I was upset and I did that, but I don't regret it at all. Again, your whole purpose is to get out of that situation with your rights intact. If you give those up, like I said, you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem.